Hello, this is Anthony Gill from Goblin Workshop Games. I'm also host of the Dallas Designer Group, and I get a lot of requests about how to do data-driven cards from Photoshop. So I'm going to show you how to make a little zombie card deck from scratch using Photoshop, and hopefully we'll be able to do it in about 10 minutes or less. I'm going to try and do this whole thing in one take, so if I make any mistakes, you're just going to have to bear with me. Alright, so here we go. First off, we need a zombie image for the card. So I did a search beforehand and found on Vector Junkie they have some zombie images that are free. So what I'm going to do is hit print screen and grab the zombies, fire up Photoshop, and then I'm going to basically make a very simple transparent JPEG zombie. So I'm going to grab all of this right here, go to image and crop. There's my zombie. So highlight all this white with the marquee or the magic wand tool. Delete this out, and there's my zombie. So I'm going to save this as a PNG. There's my zombie. And actually, I did this a little bit earlier, so there's my zombie again. I'm just going to override it. So there's my zombie. So first thing you need to know is Photoshop keywords are your friend. So if you mouse over any of these tools, you can generally see the shortcut for them. So M switches your cursor to marquee mode, W switches to magic wand mode. So if you can have one hand on your keyboard and one hand on your mouse, you're going to save a lot of time. So it's worth investing to learn all the different keyboard shortcuts. So we've got our zombie now. And so first thing we're going to need to do is set up our data spreadsheet. And so this is the data that the cards are going to be generated from. So I'm going to launch Excel. Now of course we're making up a game from scratch, and really we're not even making up a game, we're making up some cards. So let's say that we want to make the zombie cards have a picture, an attack value, a defense value, and a health value. And then we also need a special effects description as well. So what we'll do is we'll set up the columns in our spreadsheet. So all cards should have an ID. It's not a required field, but it's just highly suggested, and I'll get into why that is later on. So here we'll have the zombie's name. So we'll have Bob Zombie. That'll be ID number 1. So life, we'll give it 10 life. I'm just making up arbitrary numbers here. Attack, I don't know, 3 sounds good. Defense, 2 sounds good. Now you don't have to do all uppercase. That's just something I tend to do. And special will be no special abilities. Lastly, we'll do a image. And so when we do our image, it's going to be relative to where we save our data files. So if we look at the data structure I set up, this is my zombie tutorial directory, and under that I've got 4 directories. One where I'm going to put my data file, one where I just put that zombie image, one where I'm going to put my Photoshop file, and one where I'm going to render out all my cards. So I try to keep my directories very organized, so even for my other games like Emperor's Arena, I've done the similar kind of design. So I'll go back to our tutorial. So what I'm going to do is reference the path to the image within my spreadsheet. So the spreadsheet, since it lives in the data directory, the system is going to need to go back one directory, go inside images, and then find zombie.png. So when I'm in my data file, the path to the images is going to be go back one directory, and go into images, and then find zombie.png. And so when Photoshop reads this column, it's going to know relative to the data file that I need to go back one directory, go into images, and go into zombie.png. Now let's say I want a 100 card deck or so. What I'll do is I'll get this number and add 1 to it, and do another Bob Zombie, and let's have maybe 10 about 15 Bob Zombies. And then number 16 would go Zombie Boss, and we'll make him tougher. 20 life, 5, and 4. And again, these are just completely random. And do a couple of those, and then how about a copy, and then I don't know, how about a spitter zombie. We'll make it weak attack, low defense, but attacks with vomit ability, whatever that is. And of course I could be specifying different images if I wanted as well. And I'll do a couple of those. So now we've got all the data set up for a little 25 card deck of zombies. So we've got plenty of Bob zombies, a zombie boss, and a zombie spitter. So now I need to save this. So what I tend to do is I'm going to go to my data files, so my zombie tutorial. Now one directory I didn't create, which I normally do, is a directory called docs. And again, none of this is required. This is just kind of best practices that I found. This is where I keep all of my original documents, like the spreadsheet. So I'm going to say zombie tutorial data. And then in my tabs, I'll just put zombie data. And so sometimes I'll have multiple spreadsheets, so I'll just list them all as different worksheets. Or you can have rule notes, those kind of things. But now that I've got my master data file, I'm going to save a CSV file, which is what Photoshop needs. So choose comma separated from the list. And I'm going to go back to zombie tutorials, go into data, and save zombie tutorial data. Of course, Excel will give you a bunch of warnings. Just keep hitting OK and yes. One thing you'll need to know though, you can't have this file open when Photoshop tries to open it, so make sure you go to File and Close. And then of course it asks you to save again, go ahead and do that. And then I tend to just reopen my master data file. So we've got our data. Now we need to actually set up the template. And I'm going to pause for a second. Okay, so now we go into Photoshop, and I'm going to make a new card. Now one service I always recommend is the Game Crafter. It's great for making prototypes, gamecrafter.com, it's actually thegamecrafter.com. And so basically it's a print-on-demand service to where you can download your own cards and upload your own material. So I'm going to go into their templates area and grab a playing card template. So I'll grab a Photoshop vertical playing card. And I will save this into about like a directory, zombie tutorials, Photoshop files, and I'll call this zombie card. Save that, open it up. Now, Game Crafter has a bunch of stuff in there by default. I generally just grab it and throw it away. Granted, you have to have at least one layer to play with, so I'll throw it into my trash. Call this background, and there's my card. The main thing I want are these rulers. Another thing that they've done that is a mistake, they have it in CMYK mode. You first have to switch it to RGB mode, and they say that in their FAQs. I don't know why they don't just update their master template, but here I go to Image, Mode, and just switch it to RGB. Normally printers do work with CMYK, but I think their new printers like RGB instead. So let's make this card simple. We're going to build it from scratch, so it's not going to be super pretty. I'm going to choose a white paint color, paint everything white. And now we need to put the zombie's name up there. So I'm going to go to my text tool, which is right here, or you can press the letter P. And I'm going to draw a region right up here. And I forgot to change my text color, so let me make it black. And I'm going to put in zombie name. Center that. And hit done. So that's where my zombie's name is going to appear. Now I need things for its health, so I'm going to put my cursor here. I try to use a big number like 88 because those are the largest character that you'll see. So if you have any two-digit number, you want to use the largest character you can. So there's that. I'm going to zoom in a little bit, move this over here, and let's do a little bit of an effect on it. So I will make the color overlay red. I'll give it a black stroke, and I'll give it a little drop shadow that points that way. So nice and simple. And for simplicity's sake, what I like to do is whenever I expect to have a layer that changes based on my data, I try and name it after the column. Because basically what we're going to do is we're going to tell Photoshop what to do with each one of those columns. So the zombie name, we're going to have this value be changed based on the name column of the spreadsheet. This is going to be changed based on the life value. And so there's our life. Let's do one for attack and then one for defense. So we'll make them different colors as well. So this one will be attack. Oops. And this one will be defense. And now let's change the colors. How about we make attack nice and yellow? And these aren't the prettiest cards ever, but it's a tutorial. And I'm building it from scratch. And we'll make defense blue. So we've got 3 colors: attack, defense, life, name. We also need the zombie picture. So what we're going to do is we're going to draw or create a new layer. And we'll call this, what do we call it in the spreadsheet? Image. I forgot to make it uppercase, but I'm going to do that now. Image. We'll call this image, just for a reference, so when we're looking through the layers we know which columns to match it up with. I'm going to draw a rectangular area, and then we're going to fill it with a color. And basically, when we get into wiring up the layers, we're basically going to say this whole layer, the pixels on this layer should be swapped out with the pixels of my zombie. And you'll see how that works in a few minutes. So we've got our name, life, attack, defense, image. We're missing a column for ID, and we're missing a column for special. So we need to add those on as well. What I tend to do with the ID is I will grab a text layer, throw on some numbers in the bottom corner or something like that. I can't see it, but it's probably some other boxes too. So there we go. And with ID, of course, you want to name it so it matches your file. And what I tend to do is just turn off the visibility. So the ID is there, it's just not visible. Or you can leave it on, so when you're correcting your prototypes, you can just write down what card number has an issue and then write down the notes. It's a lot easier to find the card in a crowd. And then for special ability, one last time, I'm going to use the text tool, draw another large area, and say special ability goes here. Do that, and then rename this to special. Now, just a note or a reminder, naming these layers does not mean you've mapped it up in the spreadsheet. It just means this is kind of a best practice on how to remember that this layer is special. So now we've built out our card, and now we have to actually assign variables to layers. So to do that, you click a layer, and you go to Image, Variables, and Define. Now this only works in Photoshop CS2 or greater, so if you have an older copy of Photoshop, you're going to have to upgrade to something more modern, because they only added it as of CS2 or later. So here, I'm on the layer called Name, and there's 2 things I can assign variables to. I can choose its visibility, or I can do text replacement. So if I want to do text replacement, here is where I name what column in the file it's going to grab text data from. So basically, what I'm saying here is on the layer called Name, I want to swap out the text value from the column called Name. And likewise, just browsing through all the different layers in the file, I can easily see that, hey, these I need to wire up things on. So if I do life, I can say pull the value from the life column, attack, do attack, defense, to defense. Hey, I spelled it differently, so that would be a problem. One is right and one is wrong. I'm pretty sure I just spelled it wrong, so image. Okay, so with images, you have visibility and you have pixel replacement. So pixel replacement is basically, of course, you have to tell it what column to grab the pixel replacement info from, and so that will be the image column. And then you can choose how it can fit. So it can either fit into the pixels that you've outlined, you can fill it, you can put in the image as is, or you can have it shrink and conform to the box. So I'm basically going to say fit as much as the image into the box as is while shrinking the zombie. So if I go back and look at the image, I'll load up my zombie just for reference. So you'll notice that this zombie is a bit more rectangular than this box. So basically it's going to shrink it in height enough to fit inside this region. If this was longer, it would shrink it so that it fits in this box and there'd be more overlap on above it. And you'll see the end results in a few minutes. So we've mapped up ID, name, life, defense, special, and image. I'm going to save this, and let's actually read in the data file